Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. My name's Jim. I am your host. Thank you very much for following our channel and listening to our draft content. I want to give a shout out to everybody that's helping bring daily draft content to you on this channel. Josh, Jared, Bill, Brian, Parker, Randall, Brock, Jake, Dean, Devin, Newt, Jacob, Clint, David. These guys bring it every episode. We could not do daily draft content without the help of all of them. So let's get ready for this episode of Mrs. R Relevant, the Daily Draft Podcast. Thank you very much, and we look forward to talking to you in a few seconds. Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. I am joined with Brian, and Brian and I are going to go through, I think, the Colts, Dolphins, Buccaneers, and Rams, and kind of talking about first round and second round choices for those teams. But before we get going, Brian, how are you doing?
Not bad. How are you guys? How are you doing yourself?
Doing pretty good. So you're a Packers fan, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you had a pretty good night there on Thanksgiving, huh?
Yep, I did.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about how the Draft Professor Simulator is set up. We're going to start by talking about the Colts. So there's two things that we're going to talk about here. One is a first-round challenge. One is a second-round challenge. We'll start with the first-round challenge. It's the simplest. It's the fastest. So we're going to do Indianapolis Colts, first-round challenge, and we're going to start. And a first-round challenge is 5 unique first rounds. So the simulator is going to go through, and it has simulated the first 11 picks? Yes, yeah. 12 picks. Excuse me, the first 12 picks. And then it gives us a player board for the Colts. And you can see that there are some edges and tight ends sitting up towards the top. So what I would like to point out is, let's say you say, okay, the Colts need a corner. We're going to go with Siobhan Ravel. What I want to point out is that Ravel is 17th on the player board right now. Okay, so I'm going to pick Ravel. And Brian, is there any other player that you could think of for the Colts in round one if Ravel is not on the board?
I mean, he probably would be on the board because he's coming off ACL. But I've been told the Colts really like really athletic players, players with high IRS scores. So whoever's like super athletic, they like those type of guys. Like a Michael Williams would probably fit. James Pierce type of player would probably fit. I'm not sure how their tight end situation is, but Tyler Warren would probably type of fit if they need a tight end.
Okay.
So those type of players would probably fit.
Okay. So I want you to observe that Warren is 14th on the draft card and Williams is 10th. So I am going to pick Warren. So we just did 2 of the 5 unique first rounds. So it just did the third draft. And if you notice, it makes sure that Ravel and Warren are off the board. So the players that we picked previously, it won't let us pick the next time. Mm-hmm. And if you look, right now we can't tell where Ravel or Warren are on the draft card because they're not here. If you see this draft board for the Colts, are you still thinking like Pierce over Walker or Pierce over Starks?
Probably. I mean, I'm not offhand not sure who they have at safety, but probably because Walker is kind of like a combo off linebacker, edge rusher type of thing. Okay. But more pure edge rusher, so I think probably Pierce.
Okay, so observe that Pierce is 11th, Walker is 6th, Starks is 8th. Okay, so if Pierce, Warren, and Ravel are off the board, who do you think is the next best choice? Observe that Genty is available this time. He wasn't available before. Burden is also available. I don't know that he was available before. Like, would you do Burden, Williams, Taylor?
Maybe Taylor. Or I mean, I said not Taylor. Sorry. Probably Williams.
Okay. So Williams is 13th, and observe that Burden is 12th. Okay, and we need one more first round. So if Ravel, Warren, Pierce, and Williams, Ravel, Warren, Pierce, and Williams are off the board, who is the next best first round pick for the Colts?
Oof. Maybe Burden, I guess. Give Richardson a weapon.
You like Burden? Okay. So already Burden fell because I think he was 11th last time. And notice he's 13th now. So even between the two, so just notice the player boards are constantly moving. So we'll go with Burden. And this is the completion of our first round challenge for the Colts. We liked Ravel, Warren, Pierce, Williams, Burden. Okay. And if we go up to the team needs section of the simulator and we find the Colts, it takes a minute for this page to load. If we go to the Colts and we go to the player list, okay, so observe that Pierce moved up to 6th. He was like 11th or 12th, I think, at the time that we took him.
Right.
Observe that we did pick Williams, right?
Yes.
Yep, we picked Williams. I had to make sure sometimes I get Williams and Walker mixed up. So we picked Williams. He moved up to 7th. We never picked Walker. We never picked Genty. So notice Pierce and Williams, because Genty, I think, was 6th on the player board when we did it. So already Williams and Pierce have moved ahead of Genty. Burden moved up to 10th. Warren moved to 11th. And Starks fell to 12th. Right? So the general purpose of our first round challenge is a couple things. First of all, that was pretty fast. We got through 5 first rounds, and Brian and I were talking while we did it, and that was maybe 5 minutes, right? You can do 5 first rounds in 5 minutes, and by the time you get to the 5th one, it's like a team traded up to take this guy away from you, a team traded up to take this guy away from you. They took this guy and this guy. So the 4 guys previously were taken away from you. So you're challenged to try to find 5 good choices in round 1. Make sense?
Yep.
Fantastic. Okay. So there's another thing on the simulator called the second round challenge. So we'll do one of these for the Colts. And Brian and I will split this. So Brian will do 5. I'll do 5. A second round challenge is 10 unique 2-round drafts. It will not let us pick the same player in round 2. If Brian and I both like the same player for the Colts in round 1, we can duplicate a round 1 pick, but every round 2 pick is going to be unique.
Okay, gotcha.
So Brian, who is your best first round pick for the Colts?
Like from that list we talked about before, or?
It'll probably be the same from the standpoint of, for the most part, when you do a first or a second round challenge, these picks shouldn't change very much.
Right. Yeah, I would say probably Michael Williams.
Okay. So he's going to go Michael Williams over James Pierce. Observe Williams is 7th on the board. And then what are you thinking in round 2 for the Colts?
Like I said before, I'm not really 100% up on the roster. But like I said, I've heard they like really athletic guys.
Corner, linebacker, tight end.
That's right. Corner. Who else available at corner besides Barron? I guess go with Barron. He's probably Yeah, most athletic guy of those top guys.
Okay. So Brian's first 2-round mock was Williams Barron. So I'm going to come in and I would do Ravel in round 1. And then I will look at the tight end board. I like Helm. If Mason Taylor's there, I love Mason Taylor in round 2. But he's probably not going to be there. So for me, I like Helm in round 2. And I might go further down this list in round 2 as well. But I'll definitely observe that Helm is currently 73rd on the Colts player board. Okay, so Brian, you're up. You get to do another 2-round mock and observe that the player I just picked moved up to 2nd on their player board.
Right. Let's go with Starks. Malachi Starks.
Okay. And what do you like in round 2?
I know he's going to run really fast, so let's go with Ty Felton.
Okay. I am going to take Ravel again. And just observe, Starks moved up pretty high there.
Yeah.
And the Colts, I believe, they need a safety and a linebacker. So, safety, linebacker. I like Emimori and I like Carter. I am going to pick Emimori, who is a safety that can play like an athletic linebacker, and observe that Emimori is 47th on the player board at the time that I picked it. Definitely gives them a presence in the middle of the field on the defense. Okay, Brian, you're back up.
Let's see. Let's go with Jalen Walker. Give him a little bit of edge and linebacker depth.
Okay. And then what are you thinking in round 2?
Let me take a look at safeties. Let's see. So Winston, Sab. Let's go with Sab. He's a pretty athletic guy, so he can fill in multiple roles.
Yep. 72nd on the player board at the time that we picked it. Okay, so at this point, Brian and I have done 5 of the 10 unique 2-round mocks. Okay, so you can see that by me picking Ravel a few times, he's moved to the top of the board. A player I like in round 1 is Mason Taylor, and I know that I'm in the minority there. But I really like Mason Taylor, and yes, I would take Mason Taylor ahead of Tyler Warren. So Mason Taylor at tight end, and then I'm going to look at linebacker in round 2. And specifically, I like both Carter and Campbell. So if Campbell's there, I'm going to pick him. Because I would have Campbell slightly higher. He could also help on edge.
Yeah.
But Carter may be more the Colts type because he's more athletic, I believe. I think Campbell's more of a freak, but I think Carter might be more the athletic type that the Colts tend to target.
Might be, yeah.
Yeah.
Smaller. Yeah.
So who do you like in round 1 for the Colts if this is the board?
Right. Let's go with Tyler Warren because I think he'll test out really well.
Okay. And what are you thinking in round 2?
Let me take a look at the linebackers, maybe. Maybe Campbell or Carter if they're available. Carter's there, yes, go with Carter.
Yep. So Campbell wouldn't have been available because if you look at the players that we've taken in round 2, Barron's off the board. Helms off the board. Felton's off the board. Emamori, Sabb, Campbell. So the players we've already taken, the simulator makes sure that they are off the board before the Colts pick.
Right.
So you said you like Carter?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Brian and I have now done 7 of the 10 unique 2-round mocks. I'm definitely going to go Ravel. And then I'm going to look at the corner board. And I like Wally, Davis, and Amos. I am less familiar. Which of these 3 have the best athletic profile to you, Brian?
That's a good one. Davis is probably a little bit stiff in the hips. I'm not sure if they run a lot of cover 2 or not, though.
Any other athletic corner that you could think of that might be further down the board?
Yeah, Harrison should test out pretty well too, Maxwell.
Okay, so we'll go with Hairston, and he's 46th on the player board. Okay, and we are back to Brian. This is Brian's 5th and final
mock. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, let's go with let's go Starks.
And then what are you thinking in round 2?
You said corner was a need, right?
Correct.
What's the corners looking like? Well, it was basically the same guys. Let's go with Delane. I know he's supposed to run pretty fast.
Okay. Okay, and then I'm just going to look on the second page here and see if anybody strikes. Okay, so Walter Nolan, very athletic. He's 23rd on the player board. So I'm going to take Nolan. I don't know how much defensive tackle is in need for the Colts, but he fits the athletic profile as Brian has been suggesting at. And then I might turn that around and then in round 2 say Harold Fannin, the tight end from Bowling Green. Do you like Fannin in round 2?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he could even go at the end of the round 1, so.
Okay. So some of the players that Brian and I talked about in round 2 for the Colts, Jade Barron, Gunnar Helm, Ty Felton, Nick Emamori, Keon Sabb, Jihad Campbell, Barrett Carter, Maxwell Hairston, Mansour Delane, Harold Fannin. And let's go take a look at the Colts player board. So I'm going to go to the tab that is the Colts player board, and I'm going to refresh it. And a couple of the players that I would want to take a look at, I would want to take a look at Nolan because he was like 23rd and we took him in round 1. And then Emamori and Sabb were like in the 70s, I think, when we took them. Mm-hmm. So those are like 3 players that could stand out. So if we look at defensive line, Nolan moved from 22 up to 18 by us picking him in round 1 once.
Right.
And if we look at the safeties, Emamori is 44th and Sabb is 59th, and they were both in the 70s. Okay.
Big jumps.
So the observation to make would be Emamori and Sabb didn't jump to the top of the Colts round 2 board. It would take somewhere between 3 and 10 times that somebody would need to take them in the second round to get them to the top of the round 2 board. And we only took them once. So they moved up, but they didn't move or jump all the way up. By rounds 4 through 7, if you take somebody once, there's a really good chance they're moving up to the top of the board. That's the way the algorithm works. So rounds 4 through 7, fans have a lot of control of. Rounds 1 and 2, the algorithm is more conservative because there's too many people that log into the simulator and take punters in round 1. Those people do exist. So I did not want to give them control when I designed the algorithm. So, okay. So, Brian, why don't we do a second round challenge for the next team in the draft order, which is the Miami Dolphins?
Okay.
So what are you thinking for the Dolphins?
I don't know as much about them as far as their needs.
Tackle on both sides of the ball.
Okay, offense tackle, defense tackle.
Yep, with a little bit of, they have a couple of edges that are coming off of ACL. So, like, I think Chubb missed the whole year.
Right,
so,
that's right.
But they did take Chop Robinson last year in round 1.
Right.
So definitely offensive line, but tackle more than guard, but they need both.
Right. It's not a good tackle class. Well, that's just what's the tackle board look like? The offense tackle.
So would you take Ursery 14th overall?
No, I wouldn't take him 14th overall.
Okay.
Yeah, not great pickings. What about the defensive tackles? Oh yeah, definitely. Let's go with. No, wait, that's right. Actually, let's go with. Let's go with Nolan.
Okay, and then who are you looking for in round 2?
I mean, probably offensive tackle. See what they have left.
Okay.
We got. That's my moving interior. Probably Charles Grant, because I think a lot of those other guys are going to end up moving into the interior.
Okay. And this is where I think the draft becomes more dynamic, because if the tackle board looks like this in round 1, and Ursery, for example, would you agree that Ursery is a tackle? He's not going to kick inside?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Right? So
definitely.
If the Dolphins want a tackle, he's likely going to be gone by round 2. So all these guys probably, like if I had to bet, they're not going to be there halfway through round 2. They're going to either be plucked at the back end of round 1 or at the top of round 2. So, I will take Ursery at 14th, and I know that that's a reach. But they need a tackle very badly. And I think we're going to see a lot of that in this draft at both tackle and corner, because there's just my opinion is that there's not a lot of them. And then defensive line in round 2. If Corleone's there in round 2 for the Dolphins, I think that's really good value. So Brian did Nolan Grant. I did Ursery Corleone.
Right.
And I think if you do bet on the draft, I think one of the safest bets is the Dolphins picking those 2 positions in some order. So do you like Nolan again, or do you want to try a different defensive tackle?
Yeah, let's try. Let's go with Harmon, because I think he's going to move up the boards pretty quickly.
Okay. Do you see Harmon as a 3 technique or a 1 technique?
I think he can do both. I think Nolan's more of a 3 technique, but I think Harmon can do a bit of both because he's bigger.
Okay.
Let's see what we got for second round tackles. Oof. not looking good. Let's see. Let's go with Milam, even though I think he's gonna move inside.
Yeah, so I think Wyatt Milam, I think that's a good pick for Miami because if he can't play tackle, he can kick inside the guard. Miami needs both. And what I would suggest is any team that drafts Milam, I would suggest just drafting a second tackle because the probability that Milam kicks inside is high. But he is a college tackle at West Virginia. He is in Dane Brugler's top 50, so you're getting a top 50 player. You're definitely helping the interior of your offensive line. And you just have to follow that up with maybe more of a project tackle in rounds 3 or 4.
Yep.
And I like Kenneth Grant to the Dolphins, so I am going to pick Kenneth Grant. In round 1. And then I like Membu in round 2. Okay. So what else are you thinking in
let's try Nolan.
Okay. And then are you still looking at offensive linemen in round 2, or is your round 2 offensive line board kind of exhausted at this point?
What do we got left at offensive line? Let's see. Cornelius, Filio.
Tight end is also in need. So the Dolphins also need a tight end. I forgot to say that.
Oh, okay. What do we got at tight end? Shea. Let's go with Helm.
So you agree that Helm is round 2?
Yeah, it's not a great tight end class as far as at the top, but it's pretty deep overall.
Okay. I will go Kenneth Grant again. And then I am going to go tight end as well. But I will go further down the board. So there's a couple guys. I think Arayo, probably not round 2. And then a guy I like is Gadsden. So, and I know his father played for Miami. So Just observe that Gadsden's 183 on the player board right now. So I just took him in round 2. Okay. So he doesn't move all the way up like Brian and I demonstrated before. He doesn't move all the way up, but he did move probably close to 100 spots up the board with that.
Right.
So, okay, Brian, what are you thinking in round 1?
What's available at tight end right now in the first? Let's take a look at what we got tight end. Yeah, let's go with Tyler Warren. Okay.
And what are you thinking in round 2?
Right. Maybe look at the defense attack, or what's that line? Let's go with Cape. Let's go with Cape Hart because he might move up everywhere and he does combine works and all that stuff.
How high do you have Cape Hart on your board?
I think in the 3rd round right now. I'd have to look, but.
Okay, defensive line. Okay, so polarizing grade, Tyleik Williams. I am not a fan of Williams in round 1, but I will pick him here. Definitely a run-stuffing defensive tackle. And there is one other tight end I want to shout out. And that's Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt. So to me, Miami has a lot of athletic wide receivers. Stowers is a very athletic and fast tight end. To me, that would give defenses problems. I probably wouldn't take Stowers in round 2. But to me, that's definitely somebody that should be higher on the Dolphins board, just simply because his speed fits in well with that room.
Right.
Okay, so this is your 5th and final Dolphins mock.
I kind of like Tyreek Williams, so let's go with him.
Okay. So you have a round 1 grade on Williams?
Yes.
Okay.
And let's see what else. Let's take a look at the tight ends. Maybe grab one of the tight ends. Maybe let's grab Arroyo because I think he's going to test out pretty well.
Okay.
I think he's going to move up the boards.
Okay. I'll do Nolan in round 1. And now Ursary just fell to round 2.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So, well, and here is the logic for that, right? So if you look, we took Fannin, Grant, Corleone, Milam, Membu, Helm, Gadsden, Capehart, Stowers, Orejo. So that basically means that the players we took, the simulator had to force, which meant that Ursary dropped this time, right? So that would be like the dream 2nd round pick, I think, for Miami. If Ursary fell to Miami in round 2, I think that's their dream because we saw most of the simulations. The tackles were going before Miami was on the clock in round 2.
Right.
So let's check a couple things here on the Miami player board. And I specifically wanted to look at like where Grant was. And then where Helm, Gadsden, Capehart, Stowers, where they were. So we'll scroll down to Miami. The player list is on the far right. And this is the Miami Dolphins specific player board. And if we look at tight end, you can see Helm is 77, Arroyo is 79, and then Gadsden is 83. And I think Gadsden was like 183 at the time I picked him. So he moved from 183 all the way up to 83 with just 1 2nd-round pick. So these players are probably at the top of Miami's board in round 3, right? Because that's about where pick 80 is, right? So if you look, 3 of the tight ends that Brian and I took are somewhere at the top of the round 3 board, and they moved ahead of Luke Lachey, who was originally a higher ranked tight end than those other 3 players when Brian and I started the exercise. So the player boards are constantly moving. You can see Fannin jumped up to 40. And then I think we did Milam. Grant moved up to 55. So he moved ahead of Carmona.
Yep.
Right? So ultimately, what you're doing with a 2nd-round challenge is by doing 10 2-round mocks, you're picking the players that team would likely target, preferably in that round, and those are the players that move up. Yep. And then if you were to do a mock draft for any other team, and you look at who Miami picks in round 2, Did they pick any of the players that Brian and I just identified? So Brian, you're a Packers fan, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and do one for Green Bay, and then we can call it a podcast after about 45 or 50 minutes. So
Yep.
I'll give you complete control over. So you get all 20 picks. You can choose to talk about 20 players. You could choose to talk about 11. It's completely up to you.
Okay, cool. Let's see. So they're gonna need probably some edge depth, and they're gonna need corner for sure. So let's take a look at the corners. Let's see. Let's go with Maxwell Harrison.
In round 1.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, they have their size thresholds they like with their corners. He's pretty close to fitting it.
Okay.
2. Let's go take a look at the edges. They like bigger edge rushers, so there's not a super lot left. It's not my favorite, but let's go with Gillot. He's kind of similar to some of the guys there.
And a hint, if you want Hairston to go right to the top of the board, my suggestion, notice he only moved up to 41. My suggestion to you is to keep picking him. You can do whatever you want, but my suggestion is at least get him into the top 2 or 3. Right now, he's the 15th overall player on their board.
Okay. But let's take a look at edges right now. Landon Jackson probably. Landon Jackson fits their thresholds. They like their bigger edge rushers. They like them like around 260, 275 type guys. So, and power rushers, long arms, so he kind of fits that threshold, that player style. Second round, what else do they need? Let's take a look at. They might also need a linebacker. They might need to replace Quay. Let's see. So, let's go with Lawson because they like athletic guys that are kind of have some decent size. Okay, let's mix it up now. Let's go back to let's take a corner.
And my suggestion, again, if you think Hairston's legit round 1,
right,
take him a few more times. Trust me.
All right. Yeah, let's take Harrison again.
Okay. So the idea is you can use the second round challenge to get the player you want in round 1 up to the top because you can keep picking him more than once.
And then let's take a look at the defensive tackle group because they might grab a defensive tackle because they're going to lose somebody. Let's say I do like Corleone. Let's go with Corleone. Because he can play some 1 tech, he can play some 3 tech, and he can do some different things.
Notice Hairston just moved from 40 to 30, so he's almost at the top. Like right now, if a user were to do a mock, Campbell's going to the Packers, right? Because that's who's at the top. So if you do Hairston and get him above Campbell, you're saying that other users of the simulator have to mock against your board for Green Bay.
Okay. Actually, let's go with Campbell. Just for fun.
Okay.
And then, because he also another guy that fits their type of linebackers they like.
Would you use him at linebacker or edge?
Linebacker, yeah, for sure. Let's take a look at the corner group, and then maybe grab a corner there. Watson, Morrison. Morrison's a little small. They like. Let's go with Delane. They like the big, fast guys.
Okay.
Campbell moved down a little bit. Interesting.
I don't know that Campbell moved down. I think Campbell was 23 before. The only difference is when we did the mock with Jackson, he moved ahead. But Jackson wasn't available last time.
Okay. Let's go with Harrison again. See how far we can get him up. And let's see. Let's take a look at the. Actually, let's go with Princely. I like Princely. I think he fits.
Once I started listening to the type of player you were looking for, when they fall, I'll try to point them out.
Yeah.
Okay, so now notice Harrison's third on the board.
Okay, cool. Moving him up. Let's go with Harrison again. See how far we can get him up.
I like the way you think. So at the beginnings, right, the player boards in the simulator at this point are about 8 or 9 days old. So what I try to do is understand what each team needs and try to get round 1 and 2 to look moderately accurate. And now fans are mocking against who different people think should go in those spots.
Okay. Yeah, edges. What we got? Overton's probably too big. Much. Maybe, yeah, D-line. Not liking the fits in some of those guys. What about linebacker? Bear Carter's a little small. I don't know if he's their type of guy, but let's go with Stuntman because at least he has the size and athleticism they like.
Okay, so you have done 6 of the 10 unique 2-round mocks. You got 4 more to go. And look at you, big man on campus.
Got him at the top. Yeah, let's go with Harrison again. See if it goes up even more. Okay.
You like Sawyer?
I don't like him that much, but I think he fits what they'd like. Yeah, let's go Sawyer just to see.
Okay. And just to give you an idea as to how that happened this time. So you've taken Gelote, do we say Gelote? Lawson, Corleone, Delane, Umalalen, Stutzman. So by you taking those players, one of those teams must have had Sawyer high enough on their board that the simulator kept picking him. But now, because they're being force-fed, towards the end of a second-round challenge, you do get a few gifts. The same way that the Dolphins got Ursary, right? He was never available until the 10th time. Same concept.
Okay. Let's go with Campbell. Then let's take a look at the D-line, maybe. Those few guys in there. Maybe let's go with Capehart. He's got the athletic upside that they like.
Okay. So now we are in the 9th of 10. I'll give you some hints. If you don't like what you see in round 2, I'll give you some hints as to how to manipulate the simulator.
Okay. Let's see. Let's go. No, I was gonna make a joke and say let's go Shooter Sanders, but
yeah, now you see it's not always a joke, right? Mock drafts now matter.
I know. I wouldn't be surprised if people were mocking him to the Packers just because they don't like Love. Let's go with Harrison again.
Okay. So if you don't like what you see for round 2, pick a
Right.
guy you like for round 3, and he's going to probably move high enough on the board that if somebody were to mock against the Packers, he would be the round 3 pick. So if you don't like somebody for round 2, pick somebody that you would think would still be there round 3 that you like.
Okay. Let's maybe take a look at the edge rushers. Let's see. Scroll down. Let's see. Oh, that's only the guys you guys out there.
Were you looking for somebody in particular?
Not specific, but I was just kind of looking to see what we can have. Oh, you know what? Yakus fits. Gabe Yakus. Or Akus, I'm sorry. It's pronounced Akus.
You pronounce it Yakus?
Akus. I thought it was Yakus or Jockus, but it's I looked through recently. It's Akus.
So he's becoming one of my guys. Like when the scouting report came on, I said that's a player that Brandon Beane is going to be all over, I think, in this draft cycle.
Yeah, he's going to be a guy the Packers will probably like too. Let's go with Landon Jackson, see if it bumps him up above Campbell, just for fun. Okay. And so Akus will been removed, right?
Correct. He was taking the pick immediately before.
Last one, yeah. Okay, I was going to see if we can move him up more, but let's see. What about let's look at some more D-line. And let's just go with JJ for fun, since he can play some fullback.
There you go. So what you'll see, if we were to look up defensive line or edge on the Packers board, okay, so we did D-line.
Mm-hmm.
He moved up to 94th.
What was he at before?
100 something.
Oh, okay. Not bad.
Right. And then if we look at Yakus, he moved up to 93.
Okay, nice.
And again, so that means that they're pretty much going to be very close to the top of the round 3 board, guaranteed to be at the top of the round 4 board.
Right.
Right. So other users are now mocking against those. So there's a good chance if you come in a week or two later, like do like a 4 or 5 round mock for Kansas City at the back of the draft order, right? See who Green Bay takes in rounds 3 and 4. And if it's Yakus and Pegs, they're there because of what you just did.
Right. Interesting.
Right. It's giving users control. And when 32 fan bases are using it, the randomness is going to be something that you haven't seen in a typical mock draft simulator.
Right.
So when I designed it, my goal was to be more random, and especially later in the draft. You don't always want Yakus there in round 4. Sometimes he should go round 3. Sometimes he should go round 5. But I need user behavior in order to get that user experience, if that makes sense.
Right. That makes sense.
Kind of thing. So feel free, anybody listening or watching, feel free to give this a try. This is at draftprofessor.com. What Brian and I were just doing is a single player draft, and we did first and second round challenges. There is other functionality. So, for example, you can rank players. That's what this is. And then you can do draft a team, which is what this is. And there are podcasts on the channel that show you what those functions are. So Brian, you have anything to say before we close this podcast down?
Not much other than just, obviously give me a follow on social media. I'm obviously there, Be Mafia NFL on Twitter. I'm also on Blue Sky. And then I also do writings for Gridiron Heroics. And just check all my writings out there. I mostly write about the draft and college football. And make sure everybody checks out this mock draft simulator. It's something very different than I've seen before. So it's an interesting tool.
Cool. Well, Brian, thank you very much for joining me. And if you haven't, check out Brian. He does offensive line scouting reports on this channel with Jacob and Randall. We record them every Saturday, and they're published at some point throughout the week. So definitely check those out. I'm Jim at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. On behalf of Draft Professor, thank you very much. Give Brian a follow. Yep. And until our next podcast, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for watching this episode of Mrs. R Relevant. I would like to remind you of our schedule. On Mondays, we have running backs and linebackers. Tuesdays, we have tight ends. Tuesdays, we'll also have defensive backs. Wednesdays, we have offensive tackle and edge. Thursdays, we have interior offensive line and defensive tackles. And on Friday, we close out with wide receivers and corners. There will be additional episodes on edge and offensive line that are scattered throughout the week. Please like the NFL Draft Fanatics Twitter and X page at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic, to stay up to date on every episode. Thank you very much for watching the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast.